Hey everyone, it's your best friend Pete, Parttimeexile, and I wanted to go over the new Ascendancy from the Legacy of Phrecia, the Architect of Chaos, the Templar Ascendancy, because it reminded me of an amulet that was nerfed multiple times, the Blood of Corruption, because of the ability that it grants is Gluttony of Elements, and Gluttony of Elements was used to make the character immortal back in Delve League, and it was nerfed multiple times in 3.3 through 3.6 because again people kept making it pretty much immortal. It might be immortal again with the Architect of Chaos, maybe. So what Gluttony of Elements is a temporary aura that causes taking elemental damage to instead recover life for the caster, you, and nearby allies. It says it functions as a Vaal skill and is affected by passive skills and items that affect Vaal skills. So Architect of Chaos should work with Gluttony of Elements, because it is passive skills. Technically, it is an Ascendancy skill, so it should work. So the point of this is you're gonna pretty much be taking elemental damage to recover life. So when this is active, you're immune to elemental damage, for the most part. I don't know if you can die, but from what I've read and understand, you're pretty much immortal to elemental damage when Gluttony of Elements is active. So it's like that because it says right here, Gluttony of Elements is a rare case where recovery and loss is simultaneous rather than independent. So losing 4,000 life to physical and elemental damage can be survived by a player with 3,000 life. So pretty much when the physical damage, elemental damage collide, pretty much cancels each other out, and you survive, assuming you have more elemental damage conversions with the physical. Hence, you would use Cloak of Flame, as it's 40% of physical damage taken as fire. And then you most likely would use a Dawnbreaker shield to convert the physical damage to fire damage. And I guess this doesn't really matter since you're immune to elemental damage anyway. But also, it says Gluttony Elements is used with Righteous Fire. The damage over time will be healed instead. So instead of a damaging aura, you're using it as a healing aura, like a vitality aura. It's probably a better vitality aura. And you want your elemental resistances to be 0 or negative. So that's why people use a Veil of the Night, which back in the day was, or still is, considered one of the worst uniques ever created. However, elemental resistances are 0 is a boost to survivability with Gluttony of Elements. The more resistance you have with Gluttony of Elements, the less recover life you get. So if you want an easy way to do that, you would use Veil of Night. However, I'll go over more in detail soon. So in order to sustain Gluttony of Elements as a Vaal skill, it says here it's the Vaal cells is 100. The Vaal soul use is 100. That's a lot. It only stores 1. You can only use it once. The soul gain prevention is 14 seconds, and the base duration of the Gluttony of Elements is 5 seconds. So if I did a little bit of calculation, I don't know if it's correct or not, but I believe you can maintain immortality if the calculations are correct. So you would need to use the Trader Keystone, which comes from the Brutal Restraint Timeless Jewel from Legion. So the Trader is, you gain flash charges for every empty flask slot. And then Brutal Restraint also has the notables attached to it, which has increased flash charges gained. I believe that works with the Trader Keystone in general. So you want increased flash charges gained in general. So that would be good. And then you would use, with the Trader Keystone, Soul Ripper. It says gain Vaal souls equal to charges consumed when used. Because Gluttony of Elements causes you and nearby allies cannot gain Vaal souls. And then it says you and nearby allies are immune to curses. and the buff itself is taking elemental damage instead heals you. So in-game, it makes you pretty much immune to elemental damage. However, this means you have to use the flask Soul Ripper in order if you're trying to sustain this. And with the Architect of Chaos, you have Vaal skills require 50% reduced souls per use. And it's, however, it says 50% increased Vaal skill effect duration. So if we look at Gluttony of Elements again, soul gain prevention is 14 seconds. So reduce that. Or sorry, also the Vaal souls use is 100. So when we reduce that by 50%, that's 50 souls. However, there's also 50% increase skill effect duration, which means the base duration also affects the soul gain prevention because it's increased duration. As it says, modifiers to buff duration also apply to this skill, soul gain prevention. So this is going to last about 7 seconds. And this soul gain prevention, 50% increase, is going to be I'm assuming it'll be 21 seconds soul gain prevention. So 7 base duration and 21 seconds soul gain prevention with Fever for Corruption chosen. And then you have Depose Order, which is 50% reduce soul gain prevention duration. So 21, and you reduce it by 50%, or let's say 22, whatever, 21, 50%, I guess 22 is 11 seconds. And then you have this, still at 7 seconds roughly, because it's 50% increased duration. So you have 11 seconds and 7 seconds. So when that happens, you would probably use a Yamuk's Accord, which has an additional 8% reduced soul gain prevention duration, and a Soul Catcher flask, along with a Soul Ripper flask. So Soul Ripper is the upgraded version of Soul Catcher. However, it says Vaal skills used with Soul Catcher have 10% reduced soul gain prevention duration. And you get some damage with Vaal skills, but this is the most important one. 10% reduced. So with Yamuk's Accord and Soul Catcher, 8 plus 10 is 16. So when you go to the Architect of Chaos, that's going to be 66% reduced soul gain prevention. So 66 reduced from 21. Wait, no, not 21. 68%, sorry. From 21. So 21 times, I'm using a calculator. So 21 times 0.68. I guess it goes 14.28. So it's about 7 seconds. So this duration is about 7 seconds. And with Yamuk's Accord with Soul Catcher, 68% reduced soul gain prevention. That should make it about 7 seconds, roughly. So if I go 22 seconds, I don't know. Again, I don't know if Path of Exile rounds up or rounds down. Because again, 50% of is 7, so it's 21. I guess it's 21. Yeah, I guess it would be 21. Well, let's just say if it's 22 for some reason, 22 times 0.68 be 14.96. However, 50% increased for the duration means this should be 50% longer. So add another 7 seconds, so 21. So 21, again, 21 times 0.68 from Yamuk's Accord and a Soul Catcher is 14.28, 14 seconds. So it's about 7 seconds from 21. So 21 minus 14, 7.28 seconds. And that should be roughly the same thing with, there might be a few milliseconds worth, but I think for the most part, you should be able to sustain Gluttony of Elements and be immortal. So the reason why, again, when you go with the Veil of Night, it's for elemental resistances are 0. The less resistances you have, the more you heal with Gluttony of Elements. Again, it recovers the life, the amount of elemental damage taken. However, with the Glimpse Chaos Notable, -4 to all elemental resistances, or all resistances, for each corrupted item equipped. So you would have negative resistances for your character, and that means you'll heal even more for elemental damage. So when you have Cloak of Flame and Dawnbreaker equipped, physical damage taken as fire, let's just say you have 60%, you'll out heal the damage taken from physical because it's converted to fire. And this is a video about a year ago by Diver Into Anything on Reddit. So he has 3 Soul Ripper flasks, an Overflowing Chalice. He thought you needed 100% fizz conversion, but people in the comments said you don't. So we're going to take a quick look. So he has, well, let's take a quick. So he has Chaos Inoculation, notable. He has 1, he's immune to chaos damage. Life is 1 out of 1. He has some energy shield just to show. So, and you can see at the bottom right, the top left, this is the Gluttony of Elements. In the bottom right, my head might be covering it, but he has the Gluttony of Elements active. So this shows that you're immune to, you're pretty much immune when you have this setup going. He did it in a map where I think back with sextants were a thing, you could have like maps have no soul game prevention or something. I don't remember what it was, but yeah. So comment was saying 100% fizz is overkill. Damage and healing done should be calculated in the same step. And you need to heal more damage from the elemental portion of enemy abilities than you take from physical portion. It says old Immortal Delbos will take 50% conversion because of this physical. So you're better off going Cloak of Flame as it's 40% fizz. And it works with converting the physical damage over time stuff like bleeding, corrupting blood. Yeah. And then someone said here, so the more you take as elemental damage, the better. Or just have negative elemental resistances. So that's where this comes along. Having negative elemental resistances should be quite nice. So this is -40. And then when you do the campaign, you get -60. I think you finish the campaign. I think you get -60. So you, you have a -100 to all to elemental resistances. And then this would be X amount to -40 chaos resistances. Or so, I don't know the amount. Anyways, it doesn't matter. You probably would go chaos inoculation when you do this anyway. So again, if you don't want to get the Glimpse Chaos, you could use Veil of Night to make elemental resistances 0. So we'd use Soul Catcher for the 10% reduced soul gain prevention, Yamaku's Accord for another 8%, and then Soul Ripper to gain Vaal souls equal to charges consumed when used. Again, this reduces to 50. This reduces to, what was it? 7, I believe. I'm not sure. I can't think right now. Yeah. Doing so much talking and I'm not used to it. But yeah. So 21 seconds with the 68% reduced from Yamaku's Accord and Soul Catcher should be 6.72 seconds soul gain prevention, and the base duration is 7 seconds. So I'm assuming Path of Exile would round up to make the 6.72 seconds soul gain prevention into 7 seconds, and the base duration, I don't know, I'm assuming again it's Path of Exile, so they'll probably reduce it because we have 50% increased duration with Fever of Corruption. So it should add 2.5 seconds, so 7.5 seconds. So there's going to be 0.5 seconds where you can use your Gluttony of Elements on cooldown to make you immortal. Period. Again. So what you need is Blood of Corruption. You get that by, with the tier purity, corrupting it, or you can get it by the card, the Poet. And then, again, Gluttony of Elements, immune to elemental damage, and then you get some physical conversion. So Cloak of Flames, 40% of Fizz taken as fire, along with Dawnbreaker, which is X amount, 10 to 20 taken fire. And then you would get the Trader Keystone from the Brutal Restraint Timeless Jewel. Again, these add charges for Soul Ripper and Soul Catcher. This one, Soul Catcher, not as important, but Soul Ripper is the one. As I can't remember if I showed you that. I don't think so. But yeah, Soul Ripper goes from plus 90 charges to minus 40. So if you wanted to use a Vaal Flame Blast, for instance, souls per use will go down to 15 from the Architect of Chaos. Where is it? Fever for Corruption. If so, it goes to 15. And the duration, soul gain prevention duration, is 3 seconds. It'll go down to 1.5 seconds. Again, 50% reduced. And then, so you'd need a Soul Ripper that has 15 charges, and a Gluttony Elements would be 50. So you need a Soul Ripper that has 50 and 15, so 65 charges when you use the Soul Ripper Flask, because a gain Vaal souls equal to charges consumed. And according to here, it says multiple Vaal skills. Souls can be allocated to multiple Vaal skills. So it would work with the Gluttony of Elements and Vaal Flame Blast, if you want to use Vaal Flame Blast, just as an example. And then you would use, again, Soul Catcher, because the Vaal skills have 10% reduced. You're pretty much only using it for this 10% reduced soul prevention duration, along with Yalmuk's Accord, which is another 8%. That's what allows you to use, that's what would allow us to use Gluttony of Elements full time, 100% of the time. If you can somehow fit in a second Yalmuk's Accord and dual wield, and then get another 8%, that would be that would help with the maintaining of Gluttony of Elements. However, as it stands, you don't need to dual wield, as the duration, as the soul gain prevention should be set at 7 seconds with everything equipped and going, like Soul Catcher, Yalmuk's Accord, along with the Pose Order, the reduced soul gain prevention. And then if you want to use Veil of Night, you can just make it elemental resistances are 0. If not, you can use Architect of Chaos and go for Chaos Inoculation also. You probably go Chaos Inoculation also with Veil of Night. But yeah. And then you would go Depose Order, Fever for Corruption, Chaos Reigns, Glimpse of Chaos. Forbidden Secrets doesn't do anything. Well, it does something, but because you'll be using Yalmuk's Accord, which already has Shepherd of Souls, you wouldn't. And Everlasting Sacrifice doesn't do anything. It gives +5 to maximum resistances. It doesn't do anything. So this is totally useless for the build. So yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4. And it should be Immortal if calculations are correct. And assuming Gluttony of Elements works. Because again, it should work. It functions on the Vaal skill and is affected by passive skills and items that affect Vaal skills. So these are passive skills. These are Ascendancy skill points. It should work. But yeah, it was a long video, longer than I expected. I did one before this and I totally forgot to calculate the base duration. But yep, take care, have fun, and remember, you're the best.